Back. Now, the secrecy of the Kenyatta-Odinga meeting that was billed as the antidote to political strife in the country on the March 9th baffled many. Exactly a month later, it's still baffling, but this time it is about the secrecy shrouding the implementation of the pact and just how slow the implementation process seems to be. We speak to Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, also Senate Majority Leader, and Homa Bay Town MP Peter Kaluma on Sunday night, and we ask, do you believe that the Kenyatta-Odinga pact is still on course? Very briefly now to the statement issued after the Kenyatta-Odinga handshake titled Building Bridges to a New Kenya. Some of the issues that both leaders agreed to tackle together were negative ethnicity, lack of a national ethos, inclusivity, devolution, divisive elections, safety and security, corruption, among others. All these issues were to be tackled after the launching of what the leaders called an implementation program, but the time frame then was simply put as soon. So there are some murmurs from some quarters about the pace, and I'll start by asking you, Honorable Peter Kaluma, does that concern you? Are you concerned with the pace of the implementation process so far?
No, I'm not concerned. Of course, based on the issues, people expected it to go very fast because you remember, Hussein, the situation where the country was at the time, and the issues that this, dialogue, if I were to call it so, were to deal with. The issues are serious. And so you want to forgive Kenyans when they say they want it, quite faster. But there is, of course, a lot that happened from, the very time of the handshake going forward. If you remember the reports on the stock exchange on that day, you see the business environment. My brother Mukomen will tell you that the situation even in parliament, the kind of rapprochement we now have between NASA and Jubilee MPs is not what we were enjoying before. So those relationships which were broken by the long election periods are already, mending up. I think that Kenyans were in a situation where they would love an instant portion kind of solution. Yes, but
you don't feel them?
I don't feel so. Those issues are weighty. Yesterday, it was brought to our attention. Remember Manoa ICPs who spoke, I believe, on behalf of the president, and then the two gentlemen who are to head the secretariat also spoke, saying that they are actually on course. So ours is to wait. I don't have any fear, and I don't see any reason as to why anybody should fear, because those problems that the leaders identified as affecting our national software still persist.
All right.
Well, first of all, you can only complain that we are running out of time if actually you are part of the time. But this is a pact that was reached by two leaders. It was not done under coercion. It was not forced by anybody. It was voluntary. It was a decision. If you saw the former Prime Minister speak, he talked about that we need to change to shift the paradigm in so far as the politics of this country is concerned. And as we speak at the moment, we already have the fruits of that kind of engagement, because we have a good, like Honorable Kaluma said, already we have a good political environment for investors to thrive in their work. There's a lot of improvement in business sector and so forth, because the uncertainty that was being created by the acts of violence and the threats and the uncertainties being created by politicians, it can only be ended by politicians. So when I see people complaining, I don't know which yardstick are they using. Nobody told them that within a month we'll do this, or within a year we'll do this.
One of those complaining is Senator Amos Wako from ODM. Busia Senate, that is. He penned a letter to both Kenyatta and Odinga, I think on Thursday or Wednesday last week. One of the things he's saying is that the silence is creating a vacuum that is being filled by those who are engaging in 2022 politics. Is that a concern to you?
No, it does not. If you remember the dialogue or the handshake between Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta, they did mention very clearly that they were least bothered about 2022. In fact, if I can repeat what they said they care most that anybody who comes to leadership in 2022 or otherwise, treats all Kenyans equally. As my brother says, nobody coerced them into that deal. And I did say here last time, Hussein, that looking at the manner they addressed the issues, it was, spirited. I don't want to believe that either of those, top leaders were playing the other. There will be obviously, concerns of the type you saw, Amos Wako raising. But I think...
You don't think it's justified to do that?
Of course, I've told you that if you remember the situation this handshake pulled the country from, there are sections or groups of people who would want, the process to be expedited or to be hastened.
Would you personally, Medium, would you want it hastened?
We would love it to go a bit more faster, but we are also alive to the situation that these are weighty issues. Remember, Hussein, we are dealing with, issues affecting our software as a nation. Issues like inclusivity are not issues you will create a secretariat and they go running with. Remember also that it is only on that day that we saw those two leaders. You don't know whether they were talking before, but the structures for this proper engagement, were to be made beginning that day. Who are to be there? Are they the only two? People you hear suggesting we need religious leaders, we need politicians, we need all political parties. Yeah. All these now need to be discussed. And I want to, assuage, people, sharing the thinking of Wako, that really this will be an ongoing process.
I responded to Amos Wako in the dailies, and my point is that you cannot superintend upon, you cannot have policing powers upon something you don't even know. Because if it was an agreement that was done in, like there's an agreement, it was coerced, we have agreed that within a month. Now, we are late from doing what? Because honestly, when someone he
says he would love, he would have loved it to be expedited, isn't it?
Expedited to where? You see, expediting something is in relation to something else.
Okay. There was a program. There's a program. You'll respond. There's a program that they were supposed to launch together in some of these issues. Peter Kaluma has just talked about it. I mean, generally saying we should not worry, but he's also saying he would love to see it expedited. I'm asking you specifically, would you love to see it expedited?
First of all, Hussein, I think it's really a fallacy and it's a lie for those of us who are not in that room and who never engaged with the president, former prime minister, to abrogate ourselves the powers of understanding, or supernatural powers of understanding what they wanted to deal with. Number two, I want to say that it would be actually what Amos Wako was starting, and if it was picked by myself or Kaluma or any other person, would be actually the going back to the old retrogressive politics of trying to create a wage. Look, for example, that agreement never said that people should not continue campaigning for 2022. I mean, and I'm saying this in regard to there are candidates like Dida, they are like Kuru Okot. They are not running any office. It's not like William Ruto, who is supposed to deliver as a deputy president, or this Kaluma, who is supposed to deliver as a member of parliament. Why would you want to say that, like Amos Wako said, you block all other Kenyans from engaging in any political activities they want to deal with? We in Jubilee agreed. We in Jubilee agreed and said, even before this handshake, that we were not going to engage in politics at least for the next 4 years, so that we can have time to deliver on the policies that Kenyans wanted. And we are proud of the efforts of the former Prime Minister and the President of creating an environment that is possible for us to create jobs for the people of Kenya, to deal with healthy issues, to deal with housing issues, so that once we are done with those issues, we can now talk about politics. Okay. But we cannot dictate, because our constitution doesn't allow other candidates who are willing to continue with their political activities.
Kaluma will respond to this shortly, but together with this, and if we have that clip now, where William Ruto was with some members of parliament, Jubilee MPs actually, and they were cautioning against the Kenyatta-Odinga pact, saying Odinga cannot be trusted, and that he will wreck Ruto's succession plan. So, or Kenyatta's succession plan, that is Ruto to be the 2022 president. So what do you make of this? We'll get those clips shortly, but we had some of the MPs, I'm sure you're aware of that. What do you make of that?
Hussein, like any national process, there are people who would be opposed to something momentous as this dialogue. And I can tell you, the first set of people would be people eyeing presidency in 2022. So the statements like the one you're talking about, the statements you'd see from some of the NASA principals must be looked at in that context, in my view. Okay. But it is very normal.
Let's just listen to what happened that day.
Lakini sisi hapana Amini, former Prime Minister.
All right, was that brief? Because I mean,
I think
I mean, there were MPs who spoke against this.
Yeah,
you're aware of that.
yeah,
I don't know if you are there yourself, by the way.
We are.
Of course, Deputy President William Ruto did not respond,
Yeah.
but they did not say anything about that. Yeah, you were saying.
Yes, so I was telling you that there is the fear of the unknown. When you have a momentous national conversation, and then looking at the program that was to be launched and the issues, you want to look at how they position you politically. Hussein, when somebody is saying you deal with inclusivity, you want to question whether the people who would be helping your campaigns in 22 would be creating space, or they will be within government still if you are going to integrate the whole nation. Issues like electoral justice and others. So to me, I look at it in the context of even the constitution we enjoy today. Murkomen and I were at Ufungamano for before, long before we knew we would join politics. Yeah. But you remember it was only in 2010 when we are promulgating the constitution. So there will be normal contestations. You'll see people like, somebody like Ruto would be a fool not to be very cautious about going into this process. Musalia Mudavadi...
This process of dialogue.
Dialogue, because you don't know what the nation is going to resolve on those issues. And they are caught to who will be elected the president. So you would want to, tolerate some level of, caution on their part, be it Wetangula, be it Mudavadi. But I think they should take courage on the statement by the two leaders that really let us look at how we better our national environment as we move forward. There are also people in NASA, for instance, who are used to, the routine opposition way of, doing things. When you tell them we are not meeting at Uhuru Park, we are not meeting at Jacaranda, the strategy of engagement has changed. It's like, taking a drug addict from... So you love those tantrums. And of course, a number of people. But my position is that this thing is no longer Raila and Uhuru. If you remember, Hussein, somebody like me was proposing the division of this country into two. I only stopped when I saw these people addressing the issues as to why we were making, such radical proposals.
First of all, I just want to make it clearly, as a friend of the Deputy President and a leader within Jubilee government, and actually majority leader, I want to insist and for Kenyans to know that we welcome the relationship between the President and the former Prime Minister wholeheartedly. The Deputy President has gone public saying that it is important for this country to unite. In fact, as a political animal that I am, and if I was to advise even the Deputy President, even publicly, is to say that he stands to benefit more by having a country that is peaceful, that is enabling the Jubilee government to deliver on the promises they made, because it becomes easy in 2022 to make an argument based on development. And if we will go by what the former Prime Minister talked about, he talked about the problem must stop here. If we are now going to engage in 2022 on a campaign of issues, it will be issues about Jubilee won elections in October 2017, 26th October 2017. They promised Kenyans these things. Were they able to deliver? And in an environment that we are having at the moment, you can see the Deputy President is busy, launching roads, launching projects, meeting leaders in Karen about what's happening in their counties. I'm hoping to see him soon meeting the governor of Homa Bay with my brother here, Kaluma, because now he will have an environment that is inclusive, that is for every citizen can be able to go to the office of the Deputy President and work on issues with the President to develop this country. So those of our leaders who are aspiring to be president in 2022 and they are opposed to this deal, I want to tell them that you cannot oppose an idea whose time has come. Number two, saying I'm not a prophet, but I want to say I sit in an office which is a bit more privileged. I would want those who will oppose Raila Odinga's relationship with Uhuru Kenyatta that sometimes you don't fight somebody who has nothing to lose. There are people in this country, and I want to tell them, who cannot plan their politics, whose politics is only planned around Raila Odinga being a presidential candidate. And if Raila Odinga is not a presidential candidate, they lose track because they have no focus on where they are going. That's why you see some people are opposed to this deal, because they fear is that they don't know, they have never planned their politics around Raila Odinga not being there. And I'm not saying much. I'm just saying that people must be ready to prepare and plan their political lives in and when Raila Odinga is not a presidential candidate.
I don't know if there's something you know that we don't know. That's what you're saying.
Well,
you won't say much.
Yeah, you see, I can't say much because by virtue of my relationship and the office that I hold, I get to get certain information. But I would rather that information.
Where he may be going to, what he's doing.
Exactly. So that information, I would rather
politics.
Exactly. I would rather allow the president and the former prime minister to lead this process in the manner in which they agreed, and ask Kenyans that to be patient. One of the things, and you know, saying some of these people, I saw some people tweeting and saying, you know, Murkomen, Duale, and the other people now have no politics to engage, they have no person to attack. We were never criticizing Raila Odinga or attacking him as a person. We were disagreeing with the policies. But now, as we speak, we are all together as Kenyans have come to the agreement. You know, Hussein, I was in Kisumu last weekend. I really enjoyed my time there playing football, because that handshake opened doors for Kenyans to travel all over. And I'm waiting for the day Honorable Kaluma will welcome you to Homa Bay so that we go and do development projects there. He comes to Elgeyo Marakwet in an environment where there will be no suspicion why Kaluma is in Marakwet and why Murkomen is in Homa Bay. Okay.
I mean, in the meantime, we saw some events that have seen the opposition question the sincerity of the government in this park to actually generally just the intentions of the government. One of those is the one that what we saw at the airport recently, the standoff between Miguna, the JKIA. And I'll read a text here quickly, 22422. Abel Nyakundi from Masinde Muliro says, I don't think if it is still on course, that is the pact, saying, as per the Miguna saga, and we saw Honorable Raila Odinga being harassed personally by a police officer. To me, I say no. We can look at those clips and what happened that day. There's Raila Odinga actually leaving, seemingly angry, on that day after Miguna was put on a plane. He didn't leave that day, Miguna. He left the next day or a day, 2 days after. Raila left without saying a word. Some people actually in NASA, in ODM, talked about this being humiliation for Raila Odinga. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, Hussein, there are some things which would cause people to be concerned, I can tell you. You cannot, for instance, say that the country is on the mode of talking with itself, among other things, inclusivity. And then you see the habits which are the reasons as to why we want to discuss inclusivity continue. I've said here before that the idea of regionalism and ethnicity needs to be to end. So it normally concerns people when, and my brother will confirm to you, when, for instance, we sit in Parliament and you still see this Gema Kalenjin punctuated by Somali kind of nominations being brought to Parliament when there are concerns. It would genuinely concern people when you want to talk about respect for the rule of law and you repeat it in a memorandum on several times, as between Raila and Uhuru, that is, and then you see something that goes against that before the talks even begin. So those are concerns. But I want to say that on the Miguna saga, that requires a whole 1 hour to debate. I think there were issues on both sides. Personally, I believe both Miguna and the government, built a mountain out of something that to me was a very small issue. So that we've seen some ODM MPs speaking in Parliament and even outside saying with that they were questioning the government's sincerity in these talks between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. And that Raila was personally there and still nothing happened. Our people, including leaders, need to understand government. I told you last time that we are all in government, including you. We may not necessarily be in the governing party, all of us, but we are all in government. I think that, there is haste. A member of parliament cannot go say we are questioning the handshake when the structure for the engagement itself is not laid down. I think those are emotional. And I can tell you the Miguna issue in particular, drank a lot of emotions. People who believe in human rights, believe rightly so that he was violated.
I'm asking this, Honorable Kulwa, because he was part of NASA.
Yes.
He was part of the resist movement,
Yes.
which you all talk about. And you said very clearly, it is because of this handshake that all that ended. And a text like this, and many have been saying, even your own MPs, that it directly questions the sincerity of government in this. And number two, that Raila Odinga was there and that he tried to intervene or he couldn't intervene. Does that bother you in any way?
Let me tell you, what we are doing as a people is interpreting the photos. You don't know what Raila's role at the airport was and why he left without speaking. And I think that is better left to, you know, the lawyers for Miguna who were at the airport, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and other issues. But I can tell you, both Miguna and the government security apparatus and the immigration system did not make it easy for us to avoid you know, a situation where these small things are picked. And this is what personally I would be emphasizing. That for us to move forward well into this momentous, you know, national engagement, there are small things and distractions which we need to avoid. Things like this Migunas were distractions that we could have easily obviated and we would be on course. I think we need to avoid them. There are too much campaigns we were talking about. Let us focus on this national dialogue. Yeah, those 2022
so
are too much. I think we need to...
You don't think Murkomen and team
No, we are concerned because... and any reasonable person would, because when I saw the deputy president, you know, tweet 7 times, 1 hour into after the handshake, and of course he goes out across the country, he's launching projects, but he's saying we are fully supporting. But that is not what, you know, his lieutenants, mainly from Rift Valley, are showing you. They are there shouting, you know, this handshake, we must, you know, go into it with caution, this and that. And you've seen them. That is the context in which you would see Waititu and those several others you saw talking. What I'm talking about is that Murkomen and you know.
But you know Waititu doesn't.
Let me tell you, Sen. Let me tell you, Sen. The truth of the matter is in the first statement I gave you. That Kenyans who want a true nation are into this thing.
Yeah.
Kenyans who believe it will jolt their 2022 aims are looking at ways of, you know, approaching it with a bit of caution. And that should be avoided. Let us go into this thing wholeheartedly and we'll leave it at that.
Yes. The Miguna issue, I think there's something that many Kenyans are ignoring. As soon as the president met the former prime minister, Miguna started writing messages on Facebook and Twitter castigating the former prime minister, telling him that he has met the enemy, that he has betrayed the cause and so forth. When he arrived at JKIA, he actually wanted to actualize what he had written, to make it create an environment that the former prime minister would look like he's going to be embarrassed. That's why he hid his passport. The court gave an order that his passport should be presented and stamped, and lied to Kenyans that you can come to the country using an ID. I mean, Hussein, the whole story, forget about all these stories about court orders and so forth. It only lies on one thing. Okay. Dishonest of one man, refusing to present his passport. I am told former prime minister went there and told him, even if you are worried that your passport will be taken by immigration people, give me your passport, I will make sure that I present for stamping and give it back to you. So his intention was to actualize the embarrassment he wanted to put on the former prime minister from the time he left in Canada. Okay. But let me answer the last thing.
You will. There's a whole case around that. And I'm bringing this up because 3 weeks ago, speaking to Senator Orengo here, he actually told me that bringing back Miguna was part of the conditions. And
indeed, it was good. I mean, the former prime minister even said that we are waiting for Miguna as part of that condition, that we are opening the process.
We cannot discuss Miguna without interfering with the ongoing court process. That is why
so that's what I was
cautious about.
That was agreed. He was brought. Kenya Human Rights Commission was involved. They went there to invest. They even got frustrated and left the place. And as my colleague is saying here, since it's a matter alive in court, the only thing I wanted to point out there is that you cannot divorce the vitriol that Miguna was spewing when he was in Canada as against the former prime minister and the embarrassment he was creating at the airport. And that there was not going to be possible.
Did you think the government handled it well at the airport?
I think they were put in a situation that there was nothing else they would have done. And I think that's the problem. But let me come back to, let me respond to what my colleague said here. Mr. Kaluma, when I speak here, I speak with utmost authority. Not just as majority leader, but as a person who works closely with the deputy president. There is no greater beneficiary if Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta work together, the greatest beneficiary is William Ruto. Why? Because they formed ODM together. Because the deputy president, William Ruto, is the deputy president of Uhuru Kenyatta. That in the past, the deputy president supported Raila Odinga to go to the presidency. If the two gentlemen who have had a handshake work together, having worked with the former deputy president well, and having the deputy president having shown maximum support to them, there can be only one beneficiary in 2022 to an arrangement where Uhuru Kenyatta and Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are working together. It can only be William Ruto. And our advice, and I want to challenge my friend here, I haven't had a single person from Rift Valley or someone who has been working with the deputy president saying that it would be wrong for us to work together. I mean, who else? I've been around. The deputy president himself has spoken for himself. I don't speak for him, but if I speak as a person who knows him, is that he was so excited that finally the politics have come down and we have an environment that we can develop this nation.
We'll leave it at that. Both of you then are saying we don't know. From both of you, I mean, individually, do you know when this thing will be launched, or any idea on when we'll start seeing things move?
The good thing is that nobody said anything will be launched. Which day?
The spokesperson of the president and the two people who were to chair the secretariat spoke yesterday, and they said it is on course. I mean, let us see how it reels. Ours is to support it.
Yes. Right. Okay. And Ambassador Kimani, in all fairness, actually spoke to Citizen yesterday and said something will be moving this week, and talked about Thursday. We'll be seeing a roadmap by Thursday. We'll wait and see. Back to our question again, do you believe the Kenyatta-Odinga Pact is still on course? Text us 22422 on Twitter. Use the hashtag Sunday Live. We'll be back with your feedback after this break. To our guests, thank you so much again for making time for us tonight. Stay tuned.